Good morning, my name is Mike Swinford. I'm the CEO of NewMotion. We are broadcasting live around the world right now via Facebook Live, and we are super honored with the next speaker that has joined us this morning. I'm privileged and honored to introduce him, and I can't wait to hear a little bit more about his story. So Steve Gleason played in the NFL for 8 years, primarily with the New Orleans Saints. He's famously known for blocking a punt in the first game in the Superdome right after Hurricane Katrina. It resulted in a touchdown, and it's considered the beginning of the rebirth of the city of New Orleans. There is a 9-foot bronze statue of Steve and the play outside of the Superdome. After 8 years, Steve retired from the NFL. He got his MBA from Tulane University. He married Michelle Varisco and traveled around the world. They have one child, Rivers. In 2011, Steve was diagnosed with ALS. Soon after, he founded Team Gleason, where they provide leading-edge technology, create life-changing adventures, and they focus on awareness for people living with ALS. Steve's story has been told countless times on every major network, most recently in the highly acclaimed film Gleason, which we've all seen, some of us multiple times. Steve is a NewMotion customer. He's an NFL legend. He's a film star, and he's one of the most inspirational human beings I know. Let's roll the video.
The worst of the storm has now reached New Orleans.
At least one levee has broken.
Under 10 to 12 feet of water.
Buildings have collapsed.
It's just heartbreaking.
After Hurricane Katrina, Steve Gleason helped the city of New Orleans rise again.
Last year, so much hopelessness inside this arena, it's been replaced by the sounds of hope and rebirth.
You feel like a shotgun blast goes off, and that's the sound of the ball hitting Steve Gleason's hand.
This is one of those moments that was so much bigger than just football.
And after 8 seasons in the NFL, Steve retired and married New Orleans native Michelle Varisco. Life was good. They traveled the world and planned to start a family. But a few years later, Steve experienced a hurricane of his own.
I have been diagnosed with amyotrophic lateral sclerosis.
But Steve's a fighter. Instead of deciding to die, he decided to live. ALS is a neurodegenerative disease that separates the brain from the rest of the body. And while it slowed him down, Steve Gleason has proven to be virtually unstoppable. Steve and Michelle not only decided to have a child, they decided to live and ultimately made a film about it.
This is intended to be a gift for you.
Not knowing if he'd be able to speak to his unborn son, Steve began making a video diary for him. This would become the critically acclaimed documentary, Gleason, raising awareness of what it's like to live with ALS while inspiring millions around the world. And when it came to staying ahead of ALS, Steve not only helped develop technology that would improve his life, he started a revolutionary foundation to provide it for others. Team Gleason was founded with a mission to help people living with ALS realize their purpose by sponsoring extraordinary life adventures, as well as provide them with the technology they need to continue to thrive. Over the last 7 years, Team Gleason has sent people living with ALS on trips to Italy, Montana, Hawaii, Africa, 2 Super Bowls, Peru, and many, many others. The foundation has not only provided leading-edge assistant technology and equipment to thousands of people living with ALS, but also opened the Team Gleason House for innovative living, where up to 18 people living with ALS can live as productively and as independently as possible. Team Gleason also held an international summit in New Orleans, and for the first time, people living with ALS shared the stage with leading researchers, developing a business plan to find a treatment or cure for the disease in their lifetime. Steve's taken his battle to world leaders to pass legislation.
The Steve Gleason Act is now the law of the land.
In order to provide technology to those living with neurodegenerative diseases across the country, he's met with heads of industry and medicine, challenging them to improve technology and the science that will someday lead to an answer for ALS. Because Steve believes sports can oftentimes reflect life, and winning isn't everything. He created a set of sports and life skills clinics for kids, all while staying continually active as a father, one of his most important roles.
Did you make any new friends today?
No.
Did you play with Cohen today, bro?
No, he had fever.
Ultimately, Steve's response to being diagnosed with ALS is to end ALS, and not for him, but for you and I, while improving the lives of those who continue to fight it around the world. And he's just getting started.
Hi there. How are you today? Can everyone hear me okay? Excellent. I'm already a little nervous to speak in front of such a fine and elegant crowd, so I'll try not to stutter. Thank you to Mike and the New Motion executive team for choosing to have me here today. And, personally, I want to thank my own local team from New Motion. Jeff Cosentino and his crew have been amazing since the first time we started working together. You're probably wondering about this David Letterman beard. And, all I can say is that Christmas is only 11 months away. I'm here to discuss leadership, leaders and leadership styles, and the role leadership has played in my life. I've been fortunate in my 40 years of life to encounter a lot of great leaders. Obviously, sports have allowed me to work with guys like Sean Payton and Drew Brees. But I've also gotten to know and work with business leaders and political leaders from all over the country. Guys like Satya Nadella, the CEO of Microsoft, Bill Gates, Jeff Bezos, Eddie Vedder, and President Obama. Actually, let's go back first, for a little of my personal history. On January 5, 2011, just over 7 years ago, I was diagnosed with amyotrophic lateral sclerosis, ALS, a terminal diagnosis. The experts told me the average life expectancy for someone with ALS is 2 to 5 years. Let me just say that those two sentences can really fuck with your head. As some of you in this room, who work with ALS clients, understand, ALS is a disease that affects the nerves or motor neurons in the brain and spinal cord. These are the nerves that tell your muscles what to do. With ALS, messages from those nerves gradually stop reaching the muscles, leading the muscles to weaken and waste away. As a result, people ordinarily end up fading away quietly and dying. Fortunately for someone in my position, ALS rarely affects the mind, and rarely affects the eyes. This is a huge factor that we will get more into later. When Lou Gehrig was diagnosed with ALS in the 1930s, there were no effective medical treatments available. Likewise, when I was diagnosed with ALS in 2011, there were no effective medical treatments available. That is still true today. As many of you in the audience know all too well, ALS is a disease that destroys people's purpose. It can suck away the meaning of life, not only for the person who is diagnosed, but also for families and close loved ones. ALS can force the greatest leaders to fade away quietly, to die. I believe many of you have seen our documentary film, which was released by Amazon last year. You understand this? No, I'm not Oprah, so there's no free DVD under your chair. Oprah would look pretty spectacular in this girthy beard though. Michelle and I, and our families have experienced this struggle firsthand. And our film documents our journey in a rather intimate and raw account. After trying to digest the news of being diagnosed with a disease that is terminal and has no effective medical treatment, I chose to do some research. In the months after I was diagnosed, I was searching and scratching, desperately, to find some type of solution. If there was absolutely any hint of a possibility that I could figure out how to live a meaningful life despite my ALS diagnosis, I wanted to do everything I could do to discover a way to make that happen. In the midst of this chaos following a terminal diagnosis, and searching for something of a solution, I had a subtle, almost unconscious thought deep in my mind. This could be an opportunity for me. This could be an opportunity to be an example to other people, I told myself. I thought to myself, maybe this is an opportunity for me to help other people. While I don't think of myself as a great leader, I suppose I have been in leadership positions much of my life. As the oldest child in my family, I would find myself trying to make the mature choice, while my little brother got to have all the fun. In college, I was the captain of my baseball team, and the football team. Then in the NFL, I found myself as captain of our special teams unit in New Orleans for several years. Finally, I helped start our charitable foundation, Team Gleason, in 2011. With a great team around me, we've been helping people diagnosed with ALS stay productive and purposeful for over 6 years. I have a fairly simple definition for an effective leader. My basic definition of an effective leader is a person who helps people accomplish their goals. I'll say that one more time. An effective leader is someone who helps others accomplish their goals. And I feel that leadership can be split into a couple of categories. There are vocal leaders, which we see all the time, and there are inspirational and motivational leaders. I call motivational and inspirational leaders. I call that leadership, leading by example. I don't think you have to be one or the other, Rather, most of us are a mixture of vocal and physical leaders. Additionally, as life comes at us, our role may change. We might go from a leader by example to more of a vocal leader. In my younger days, I was definitely more of a physical leader by example. But obviously, with ALS, I've had to persevere, stay poised and positive, and find ways to be more of an effective vocal leader, while still inspiring by example. So, whether we are a vocal leader, or a leader by example, there are important principles to focus on, like being bold and courageous, or finding ways to make yourself better, by making other people around you better. For us today, the most relevant leadership principle, in my opinion, that the best leaders are able to figure out, understand, and identify is, what the core problem to solve is. Stated another way, the most important trait for a leader to have is, being able to identify the root problem to solve. I learned this from someone who has become something of a mentor of mine. This mentor's name is Jim Margraf, and he is an extremely successful Silicon Valley entrepreneur. Jim invented the LeapPad learning system, and the LiveScribe Smart Pen, and his most recent entrepreneurial adventure, iFluence, was just acquired by Google. And, most exciting for me, Jim is also on the Team Gleason board of directors. So, as Jim says, problems and obstacles are everywhere around us, but great leaders have the ability to focus on identifying root problems. Because problem solving is one of the most important skills a leader possesses. I had a spectacular football coach with the New Orleans Saints. This coach's name is Al Everest. I can say with confidence that the techniques and strategies that I learned from Al Everest is much of the reason I was able to play in the NFL so long. Al is a little more rough around the edges, in comparison to Jim Margraf, yet he had a similar philosophy. Coach would say, in his country drawl, listen stud, if you want to be a great leader, you gotta work smart. Because guess what stud, you know a jackass works hard all day long, but at the end of the day, guess what, he is still a jackass. Essentially, these two mentors of mine are saying the same thing. Working hard is not only important but critical, but for someone to be an effective leader, it is even more important to work smart and identify the core problem to solve. I'll get more into working smart and solving core problems with Team Gleason, our foundation, and with my personal experience with ALS a little bit later, but I think that for this group, in this room today, solving core problems is an essential skill for you all to have, as you work with clients, people like me. From my experience with the medical world, related to ALS, I feel that a big part of leadership is understanding the problem to solve, but also having an understanding of the people you're working with, and more importantly, understanding the people you are working for. I'm sure that many of the ALS families who are listening via Facebook can relate. Too often, what I've seen is that medical professionals, from doctors to equipment reps, what I've noticed is that these professionals oftentimes think they have a default solution to a default problem, but what these professionals often fail to actually hear is the people they are working for. As a prime example, I was in the hospital after I chose to get my trach. The doctors ordered an X-ray of my chest. While I was laying in the hospital bed, the radiology tech came into the room. He proceeded to go through things as if I didn't exist. Not only was he not engaging with me, he pulled my tablet away from my bed. Without my tablet, I had no way to communicate with him. Fortunately, I had a caregiver in the room who intervened and explained about the tablet, and that it was the only way I could communicate. That is a pretty extreme example, and the radiology tech was probably just having a rough day, but hopefully you are catching my point. As medical professionals, especially working with disabled people, it's important to understand that the problem to solve will not always have a default, packaged solution. Listening is essential to understanding. This example, along with other stories from ALS families, these examples were actually part of the reason we chose to document our experience with ALS in our movie. We thought it would provide some insight into understanding the process for medical professionals. Most of the clients you work for are experiencing some serious life-altering changes. In this industry, it's easy to lose sight of what we are really here to do. I would encourage you to be great listeners, as your clients are trying to manage extreme changes in their life. While changes may be occurring within your own life, and within your profession, and within your industry, please remember dramatic changes happening to your clients. I would urge you to seek insight and understanding as the environment changes for your clients. While there are many aspects of leadership we could discuss today, I feel that my experience, and even expertise, combined with much of what New Motion does on a daily basis, relates to leadership in a changing environment. In general, I think being a capable and proficient leader in a changing environment is an essential tool for all leaders, and you are all leaders. I understand that New Motion has been built by acquiring dozens of different companies. This can cause a huge amount of change in the operations and culture of both the acquiring company as well as the company being acquired. So, many of you may find this portion of the discussion relevant to your day-to-day routine. Additionally, there is almost no other situation I can think of that involves more severe and dramatic change than losing all of your physical abilities over a 3 to 4 year time frame. So, I like to think I'm an expert and have some wisdom in successfully managing change. That wisdom is pretty damn evident in the recession of my hairline and the gray of my beard. If you got it, flaunt it. If you're a sports fan, I was a part of a pretty exciting and pretty successful leadership change effort with the New Orleans Saints. In fact, after I retired, I got my MBA at Tulane University. While at Tulane, in the MBA curriculum, a required class was called Leading Change in Business. Much of the class was structured around a book called Leading Change by John Kotter. It's a spectacular book, and I would highly recommend it to anyone here in this room. You're all leaders in different ways. As a side note, getting my master's in management always seemed important to me, but now that I cannot move or talk, the skills I picked up while getting my master's degree have become absolutely critical to my life. For my thesis paper in this class, I wrote about my experience with the successful change effort with the New Orleans Saints, changing what had been decades of mediocrity into a first-class organization, a championship organization. Although my thesis was called Leading Change in Athletics, I believe the principles discussed can be applied toward any situation. Kotter's book, Leading Change, outlines 8 steps to leading a successful change effort. I used our efforts with the Saints, and analyzed each step in the book, and graded the organization's efforts. There are some fantastic anecdotes from the thesis regarding leadership in a changing environment. The 8 steps in John Kotter's book start with the first critical step, establishing a sense of urgency, and conclude with the final step, consolidating gains to produce more change, or as I like to say, stacking your success. While I feel like all of the 8 steps are important, the one that stands out to me as the most relevant to us today is step number 2. This second step to leading a successful change effort is entitled, to create a guiding coalition. Your guiding coalition are the group of leaders who are going to help you communicate your vision and help lead as you all carry out the established mission. When assembling his personnel, Coach Payton chose to recruit free agent Drew Brees to be his quarterback, and longtime NFL coach Joe Vitt to be his assistant head coach. Although these guys' ability and talent was impressive, I believe Payton recruited them more for the human leadership ability than their coaching and playing ability. These were critical members of the guiding coalition for Coach Payton, as Coach Vitt and Drew Brees would lead the team with a passion and enthusiasm for football that would be contagious to the rest of the organization. Both of these individuals would take great personal risks by vocally demanding excellence from the players, but also encouraging the team to develop an investment in each other. I'll tell a quick story about Drew being part of the guiding coalition established by Coach Payton. Before Drew Brees arrived on the team in 2006, I had been working with a quarterback who was supremely talented, but who lacked most of the necessary leadership skills to be successful. When Brees arrived in New Orleans, he stood up alone in front of the team towards the end of training camp, and presented us with some lofty team goals for the season, as well as characteristics he saw as necessary to accomplish these goals. At the time, Brees was a successful quarterback, but not an all-star, and he was coming off a potentially career-ending injury. He had his naysayers in the media, as well as among the players. Coach Payton had to take a huge risk in identifying Drew as the quarterback to lead the team. In Drew, Coach Payton saw someone who was willing to stand in front of uncertain teammates, be bold and courageous, and set extraordinary goals for the team. Drew had to take the risk of exposing himself as vulnerable to the scorn of other players. I remember sitting in the team meeting room as he unexpectedly stood up. I remember being nervous for Drew. Coach Payton chose to put faith in Drew, which in turn helped him understand that players who didn't buy in would eventually be off the team. Looking back, Drew knew he had to find a way to be comfortable with being bold and taking risks, if he was going to actually lead the team to meet these outrageous goals. In his final step to establish a guiding coalition for the Saints, once the final roster was set, Payton created a players' coalition that met with him weekly. This group was composed of a handful of players from various positions, as well as various backgrounds. This players' coalition allowed the team to participate in the day-to-day decisions surrounding team operations, and brought credibility to final decisions made by Coach Payton. I'm proud to say that I was a member of the Players Coalition. As I mentioned earlier, losing most of my physical abilities caused severe changes. I've had to find ways to continue to be a husband and a father, as well as find ways to be an effective leader, despite enduring the most intense physical changes imaginable. Given that our family has experienced such drastic change, the most crucial element to my life the past 7 years has been to assemble a strong guiding coalition of people to help me not only carry out the mission of our foundation, but also to help me remain productive and purposeful as a human, husband, and father. I was speaking with Mike last night before the awards banquet, and we both talked about how critical it has been to have the spectacular teams that we have surrounding us. I have a genuine love for the team that surrounds me, and I feel that same love and dedication from the New Motion team that I've met. I love what I have experienced working with New Motion. From my local team, with Jeff Cosentino and his crew, to the corporate team I've gotten to know this week. Jeff has helped provide me with solutions to core problems on my wheelchair, and Mike, Melissa, and the national team are working with us to find the path to deliver the iDrive program to everyone who needs it. While journalists always like to say that I'm confined to my wheelchair, I see things quite differently. I'm set free by my wheelchair. I'm liberated by my wheelchair. It might not be quite this serious for Mike, but I owe my life to the guiding team around me, as so much has changed for me. Many of you may be experiencing some significant changes professionally, as your business models change, or acquisitions take place. As someone who's lost most of his physical abilities over the past 7 years, I can say that the anticipation of change was worse than the actual change itself. Most dramatically, when I was struggling to speak, I won't lie. I had moments of terrifying dread anticipating the loss. I still had so much to say. I was desperate to be a father to our son Rivers. I was dreading that I would not be influential in Rivers' life. I was terrified that I would not be active in his life. I was desperate to be present in Rivers' life. But somewhere deep inside me, I sought avenues that would creatively allow my voice to be heard. Avenues that have transformed loss into gain. For those ALS families in the online audience, experiencing even more intense changes, as your family member loses abilities and becomes more reliant. I don't want to be fantastically optimistic with this part of our discussion, but I want to try to be realistic, and possibly encouraging. I will say this. The staff at Team Gleason has worked with people who have been through what you're experiencing, and we're here to do everything in our power, to provide the resources, equipment and technology, so that you can work to find avenues, so that you can stay productive and purposeful. Team Gleason is here to be part of your guiding coalition. As we were forming Team Gleason several years ago, we had to look at the root problem to solve for the ALS community. The obvious problem is that there is no cure, nor even any effective treatments for ALS, so it would appear that the root problem is that there needs to be more investment in research for treatments and a cure. But the more I analyzed the situation, I saw a different problem. I noticed that people who were diagnosed with ALS would enthusiastically put their support behind one research effort or another. I saw this happen with wealthy people, poor people, famous people, less famous people, but there seemed to be a deeper problem. I noticed that even great leaders, after being diagnosed with ALS, would throw their support behind the research effort. That research effort would build momentum, then, oftentimes, 3 to 5 years later, the person who was supporting the research, building momentum, and moving the effort forward, that person would die, and much of that power and energy would be gone. There seemed to me to be a deeper core problem to solve, especially since my 3 to 5 year time clock was ticking away. Tick 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 tick. Sorry, I said I would try not to stutter. Remember when I was scratching and searching desperately to find the way to live a meaningful life? The answer came in the form of technology. During my research, what I found was much more encouraging than my medical doctors had offered. I found that, with the use of ventilators and innovative technology, people were continuing to be productive and purposeful for years, even decades. As I stated earlier, since Lou Gehrig's death, there has been no effective medical therapy development for ALS patients. On the other hand, during the same time period, technological advancements for ALS patients have been, like the technology industry, these technology advancements have been exponential. The technology I use is very beneficial. I am able to type, speak, and navigate a computer or tablet, no different than any of you ordinary humans. I can text, tweet, even pull up any song I want on Spotify. And of course, we've helped develop a program where I can drive my wheelchair with my eyes, which is entirely liberating. I've said this before in previous speeches, and I often feel frustrated that this hasn't happened more quickly. But with the help of some leaders from companies like Microsoft, Permobil, Quantum, and many individuals in this room, like Jay Smith, we hope to make this iDrive capability available to anyone who needs it, within the next 18 months. At my house, technology allows me to control nearly everything in my environment: computers, TVs, lights, thermostats, blinds, and doors, using just my eyes. It's amazing. Although, now that Rivers is older, we have remote control battles on which show to watch, and where the volume should be. Additionally, a few years ago, Team Gleason partnered with a local nursing home to build an 18-person residence, where other people who have been diagnosed with ALS can utilize technology to watch TV, control doors, lights, thermostats, and much of their environment. This innovative technology allows people to live as independently as possible. It can also allow them to continue to be productive and purposeful. In a sense, while there is no medical cure or treatment for ALS, technology can act as a cure. Stated another way, technology provides a solution to a core problem with ALS. I will put it bluntly. Instead of being a productive member of society and a pretty badass father, without technology, I would be dead. This is why our primary mission at Team Gleason is to provide the resources, equipment and technology to allow families diagnosed with ALS to remain productive and purposeful. In many ways I feel like we've conquered ALS. And Team Gleason is providing the resources for other people to be fellow conquerors. I plan to keep kicking ass for decades, and I want to help others do the same. You might be asking the question, that is great, Steve, but what about the research effort to find an actual medical cure for ALS? Well, with the help of technology, and a spectacular guiding coalition, Team Gleason hosted a summit in 2013. This summit put ALS patients and caregivers in the same room as researchers, doctors, and scientists. All of these people were tasked with working together to develop a business plan that would solve ALS in the most efficient way possible. The name of the project is called Answer ALS. The project is focusing on the hypothesis that there is not just one ALS, but many distinct variations. To that end, Answer ALS is creating the most comprehensive assessment of ALS in history, and openly sharing those results with the global research community. I feel like using technology to solve a core problem was a good choice. Without technology, I would not be speaking to you today. Because of this decision to utilize technology, I'm able to be a father to our son Rivers. I'm able to be influential in Rivers' life, I'm able to be active in his life, and I'm able to be present in Rivers' life. Remember when I said my basic definition of an effective leader is a person who helps people accomplish their goals. Whether you are a born leader or one who commits to it, you must choose to lead. The decision to provide technology to people who have been diagnosed with ALS has allowed Team Gleason to help people accomplish many of their goals. Some people, like Jay Smith, have complex goals to remain purposeful and productive. Some people's goal is to drive their wheelchair with their eyes. Others have a simpler, yet no less important of a goal, to tell the people closest to them, I love you. We're also helping the ALS community accomplish the ultimate goal, to cure this disease, and put an end to ALS. I'm so grateful to my family and my care crew and Team Gleason staff, and the leaders around me, like Mike and Jeff, who follow the same philosophy, and help me accomplish my goals. Everyone here, and everyone watching is a leader in some way. We're all called to help someone accomplish their goals. I would invite you to work smart, identify core problems, despite changing conditions, and make the choice to be a leader. Thanks. Have a great weekend. No white flags.
I'm not going to lie. This is a little intimidating to get up here and interview Steve Gleason. So I've got a couple questions I'd like to ask Steve. And first, I just want to say thank you, Steve. It's been such an honor and such a privilege for us to get to spend some time with you and hear from you. You're an incredible, incredible inspiration. And we're blessed to have you here and to be able to work together. So I'm going to start.
Thanks, Mike.
You're welcome. So the speech generating device, obviously, as a technology, is incredible. As you certainly probably know better than anybody, it can lack emotional aspect of communication that can come with tone, inflection, nonverbal expression. How do you compensate for that as you communicate with your family, with different people?
I do my best to try to structure sentences so that the true nature of my character and humor can be expressed. But sometimes things definitely get lost, or fall flat. I keep trying to find ways to express myself. I think it is actually the most difficult with my wife, Michelle. She knew me so well before ALS, so it's only a partial replacement for us. On the other hand, Rivers has only known me like this. It's our normal life for him. So he seems to understand better than anyone else.
That's very cool. That's very cool. So listen, we've all seen Gleason. We've been moved by it. We've been inspired by it. I've personally been inspired to be a better parent, to be a better person, and to live life with more of a purpose. It was done as a documentary primarily before Rivers was born. After he was born, what has changed in your perspectives on being a dad that you might not have thought about or wasn't captured in the film?
I'm not sure I will ever be completely at ease with some of these intimate and raw moments in the film, which were initially intended for Rivers, being made public. At the same time, I believe that our greatest strength as humans is to share our weakness and vulnerability with each other. The film is impacting people. People are watching this movie, reflecting on their situation, and choosing to live more passionately and more courageously. So I think we made a good decision to make this film.
Absolutely.
Too.
So last question. So you interviewed your and my favorite rock star, Eddie Vedder, from Pearl Jam, and you asked him an incredible question about what he would like to know about his dad, having not grown up with a dad being a large part of his life. What would you like to know now from the future adult, from Rivers, the future adult version of Rivers, in terms of his thoughts of you?
The best part about that was that I thought of the question while I was asking at the other questions. So I would ask a question from my tablet, then flip to a different page, and furiously type that question. So, that question almost never got asked during the interview. It's a question I've asked a lot of people. The great thing about Ed's answer is that I tell Rivers that I love him a couple times every day. And the older he gets, the more I can share with him and the more Rivers will know me.
That's pretty emotional and pretty unbelievable. I just want to speak on behalf of all the viewers on Facebook Live, from the entire leadership team from New Motion, and just everybody who's inspired and really has watched the film and just pulls energy from you and everything that you do to live life with a purpose and continue to focus on reinventing yourself every single day. We are super, super appreciative of the time you took to spend with us today. So thank you so much, Steve. Thanks for what you do, and thanks for changing people's lives every single day. It's an honor.
Awesome. Thanks so much for having me here, everyone. Thanks.